like to welcome everyone joining us in person and via live stream. Thank you all for being here. All of our board members are present. The purpose of this work session is to receive operational reports and administration from the administration and discuss matters as a board. We'll begin with a review of revised policy. Jonathan will present 2305, followed by AJ 8312, and then AJ and Sue will both provide the district enrollment. Attendance updates.
Good afternoon, board members. Again, in front of you as first reading, first view is a revision to policy 2305, PTA, PTO, and other parent-teacher organizations. You can see some additional language there. Again, just clarifies our separation as the district from these parent organizations legally, financially, and otherwise, that we are not responsible for any action or inaction by this organization. Again, the last sentence, the district bears no responsibility or liability for any parent organization. Just kind of clarifies our position. That's always been in place, but just makes it a little more black and white in this policy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, trustees. Policy you also have before you, policy 8312. This is also just a few revisions for the head lice policy. And most of those revisions just have to do with updated health organization recommendations for some older practices that we still had in policy. So we wanted to revise those. As you look at those revisions, one of them includes the removal of all class examinations. So used to be you just line up the entire class and check all of their heads as they would go through. And now the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, they all recommend that no longer take place. It's if they're suspected, they can be individually, discreetly checked with parent permission, parent consent as well. So removing some of that language, and also the 7-day retreatment and recheck requirement. No longer is that something that the health organizations require or recommend, that after they have been treated, that there is no longer the need to recheck or retreat. You'll notice in our procedure that's on that, that's included in there as well, it also talks about a requirement for a 7-day retreatment following the initial retreatment. And all of the health organizations and physicians would say that that should no longer be a practice that we utilize.
When we get their permission, it's included in that parent permission, the medical would, right?
The consent.
So we don't have
yes.
to have individual separate permission for
Correct. Unless they have not given permission, then we'd have to contact them in order to get consent to check for a head check.
Okay.
And as you see, and then it also includes in there, I also included in there the procedure piece, which just outlines some of that additional information in the procedure that would be removed based on policy change as well. And then it had in there also in the procedure that individuals would receive training from the Southeastern Idaho or from the Southeastern Health Department, and there's no training that is provided for. I think it's on-the-job training that we learn how to check for head lice.
Who does those checks?
It's typically the principal at the school, but sometimes the secretary is also involved because whoever's in the office, but it's usually one of those two that at an elementary school. I shouldn't speak for secondary. I don't believe it happens as often. Sue could probably say in the secondary. But
As a parent, can you request a check randomly?
for your student or for another
Yeah, for
student?
your own child.
Yes.
Okay.
If you wanted to have a head check, you can. And you would be more than welcome to come in and they could show you what they would be looking for as well. I wish I could say most principals had not seen it, but they have. They would be able to recognize what nits look like and what head lice look like. Okay, any additional questions on those policy revisions? Thank you.
No.
Yeah, thank you.
Want to go first? Sure. Oh, you want me to go? I said, yeah, you can go first.
So our, excuse me, middle school boundary committee meeting has been meeting for the last 5 weeks. They did take off last week because they were waiting for elementary to complete a little more of their work, because that's what drove middle schools. And I did notice that Cheryl forgot to send Renee our notes about our meeting, so we will make sure that those get to you as however Renee can get them to you. And we'll go from there. We're still meeting this week a couple more times, and hopefully we'll have recommendations for you for next week.
And same with the elementary, we've met the last 5 weeks, really looking at all of the enrollment areas for elementary. I know they've been doing the same with middle school, but touching all, 13 of those elementary enrollment areas, and making sure we're doing our very best to come up with a good recommendation for the school board. Our hope is we're really planning to come up with a preliminary proposal to present at next week's board meeting, if we can get everything in good enough shape, I guess, or in good enough condition to share with you that proposal. So that is our hope and plan. We're meeting together with the middle school group on Thursday afternoon to give input between the two groups, just a few members from each of the committees to just make sure that we're on the same page, or at least have an idea of what the other committees been discussing. Sue and I have been sharing that information, so we go back and forth with our committees, but making sure those committees have an opportunity to talk to each other and share some information. And we will meet, our elementary group will be meeting again next Monday as well, to hopefully finalize a preliminary proposal to present next Tuesday.
And depending how Thursday's meeting together goes, and what changes elementary may or may not make, middle school also may be meeting next Monday night. But we'll have to wait until after Thursday to see what changes they come up with.
Also, can you give us an update on the high school
Yes.
boundaries? Because we've had several letters.
What I've heard.
We wanted to address the concerns that
Yeah.
were shared.
So when I shared last month about high school boundaries and looking that maybe they may or may not have to be looked at, since then we've met with at least one high school and regarding the division of kids. So high school as a whole has only lost 17 kids, but there's been some flip-flop in Pokey and Century's not attendance, but enrollment. When we started this, Pokey's enrollment was at 900 and Century's was at 1,300. And since then, Pokey's is now at 1,300 and Century's is at 1,100. So there's been a little bit of a switch, and do we need to look at high school boundaries to help balance that? And I would say it would be worth looking at. The question I've had is, can we do that this year? And based on our timeline of how long it's taking elementary and middle school, I right now don't think we have enough time to do that prior to high school registration. So, and I'll give you the ideas of why. January 3rd, all the calendars for the schools are created and rolled. And at that time then, all the high school registrars have to pull in every high school course that goes into their school's calendar, into their school's catalog, and has to build the rules for every single course. So if you take English 9A, you have to take English 9B, but you have to take this one first and that one second. Or if you want to sign up for this particular science class, this is a prerequisite for that. Or there's all kinds of rules that go into that, and they have 2 weeks to build that. On January 15th, all the students then are rolled up to their next calendar, and all students then know what school they're going to be assigned next year. Then counselors are assigned, and academic planning starts on February 1st, and all those four-year plans and grad plans have to be built in that 2-week time also for each high school, and they have mostly the same classes, but their elective classes are different. So if a child wants this elective, it goes in their grad plan, and they go to this high school now, it's no longer in their grad plan. In fact, that grad plan has to be rewritten all over again. So February 1st, that first week of February, they start elective fairs and all registration for high schools for 10, 11, and 12th, or 9th, 10th, 11th current students, and then 9th graders start right around the 15th of February. once that's done, changing high schools, you might as well just set registrars back, all the way back to January 1, because they have started master scheduling by then. And starting February 1st, once we roll those kids and we know how many are going into each school, we start planning for staffing. So it's just a difficult time, and we tried this last time when we did high school boundaries at this time, and it was not successful. My suggestion is that we wait until March or April and do high school boundaries at that time and finish them no later than October, so that for the following year, the 26 school year, that's when high school boundaries would go into effect. That gives parents enough time if they want to put in for open enrollment transfers. Those are only good up until February 1st. So, and then those are pretty much automatic transfers unless there's a behavior or attendance issue. Those are automatic transfers, and we have to staff accordingly because of that.
And when do those transfers happen?
Before
February
February
1st?
1st.
Okay. And you mentioned that that's a deadline. Is that a state, you were saying that
That
there's
is
a
a
state Department of Ed?
That is a state code.
Okay, I was thinking
Yep.
that,
So,
okay.
and then they've changed it since then. So it used to be February 1st, and then from then on, you could deny transfers based on pretty much anything you wanted to deny transfers on. They've put categories to it now. Anything past February 1st, if you have room in your school based on your staffing and building capacity, and the student meets the requirements, so attendance is good and no behavior, very little behavior issues, the transfer has to be.
Oh, so is that part of the law?
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize that there was that much detail in that law.
Yeah, they put that in the last couple of years.
Oh,
So, yeah, there's pretty much only 2 reasons we can deny, well, 3 reasons that we can deny a transfer. Poor attendance, excessive behavior issues, or if a program is full. So if I have a special ed student who's in a specific program and they want to transfer from this school to this school, and this program is already full based on staffing and how many people we have, that's a reason that we can deny a transfer.
So there's 2 things that jump out at me. I totally appreciate that the last time you did this, it was major upheaval.
It was different. Yep.
But I think there are some core differences in that, now you may have had somebody in Chubbuck attending Century. That's not happening now unless in the rare occasion that there's been a request. And so I'm wondering if what was the large-scale upheaval the last time would not necessarily be the case this time, because I think there's enough of a, and then you even mentioned that might be a handful of electives that are gonna throw things off, and I guess I'm just not seeing the wide-scale upheaval that happened before, that if we were to do this now.
Depends on what boundary you move.
Well, and I guess that's why I think, because this is my area.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That I would like us to be taking a look at it now. And doesn't necessarily mean you have to pull the plug, but I think maybe if we had that opportunity to look at those numbers and see where those lines could be drawn, how many kids are we actually talking about?
And
With the
I've had.
GIS
And,
information.
yep, and I had Jackie, our GIS specialist, working on that.
Okay,
And then we had some issues with elementary and middle school, and she had to pull some more numbers. I said, put this on the back burner until we finish getting
Right.
our numbers for elementary and middle school. So she's got some areas that I've asked her specifically to look at, and if you've got some that you'd like specifically looked at, I will be more than happy to get those to her, and she can pull specific numbers for specific areas.
okay.
And then I can get it back to you guys.
And so we can maybe tell you after the meeting what,
Or if you want to just
Specific?
email me and let me know. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'll be more than, and like I said, she's expecting me to ask that. This was what was on the top of the plate right now, so.
Have you already talked to transportation about any of this? I'm just wondering if they've given you any likings to, hey, it would be easier if the buses went this direction or this direction while you're looking at this.
For middle school or high school?
For high school.
In
Haven't
preparation
talked to her
for
about
these?
high school
Okay.
yet. So,
In preparation for
Yeah,
for
I
this
can.
discussion, is that what you mean, Megan?
Yes.
Okay.
yep, I
Yeah.
can.
That to me,
So that would be some really good background information.
yeah. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
And we have shared some of the information with our preliminary maps and some of the work we've been doing at the elementary level with them. They haven't given us any specific feedback. I basically said, are there any major red flags as we're doing this that you would, no, this would not even be possible transportation-wise. But as we get closer and as we get some feedback from the board, we'll definitely include transportation before we make final decisions. in the
Yeah, I would
process.
assume that elementary isn't kind of like taking boundaries,
Well,
like in very.
it's been a little more challenging, I'll be honest. It's been a little more challenging than we thought as we start to look at some of the options. And when you look at some of those options, you start to encroach. Our schools are really clustered together in the middle of town. And on this, yes, elementary, even middle school is
schools
not.
are too.
Yeah, Hawthorne and
It's just
Alameda are not very far apart from each other. But as you start changing boundary lines, you start pushing close to the edge of other schools with those boundary lines as you try to balance it out. So that's one of the things that we've run into is that you could really push boundary lines sometimes to across the street or a block away from another school to try to get the numbers to balance out. But that also doesn't make sense when you're in walking distance to one school to be bused to another school. So some of those things have just
Yeah,
taken a little bit of
especially-
time as we start to look at all of these.
Yeah.
In middle school's been slightly easier because it's literally, we're trying to, if this many kids are going to Lewis and Clark and there's this little sliver that's going to Lewis and Clark but now scheduled to go to a different school than everybody else, we can move this little sliver in. So- And that's what we're trying to do with middle school. So.
So I guess the only other thing I will say is, I missed the last board meeting, but I was under the impression we would be doing all of this concurrently. It wasn't communicated to me clearly that we were putting off high school for essentially a whole nother year. Is it impossible for us to at least start the process, start the conversation, get that committee?
We can get it going, but by the time we get it finished, students will already have chosen their classes for their schools. There's auditions that start in the spring for next year's music and team sports, and
Well, I see the point that Heather's making.
I get it.
because,
I get it.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out there, since we do have open enrollment. If they do kind of preliminary, have a preliminary idea of where the boundaries will be, even though you can't just say, you're now not going to that school. They have the option, depending on availability at the school, to go ahead and transfer to the school that they will be going to.
They have that option right now.
Yes, I guess they do, but I guess they just wouldn't know if that's the school that they're going to be, I guess in the boundaries for
Yeah.
Later on.
So the other thing you need to know, though, is if we take, I'm going to make stuff up, if we take 100 kids out of Pokey and put them into Century, you now leave 100 spots at Pokey for any transfer student who wants to go. And currently, I have more students that would like to transfer out of Century and into other schools than want to transfer into Century.
Well, but that says something. I mean, that kind of highlights the issue. And again, I mean, I know we have kind of discussed that this needed to happen almost a year ago. We talked about that this is what we were going to do. We were going to do this. We were going to do this. And so now I'm a little frustrated that here we are, we're doing it, but now we're going to put it off a year. And I think there are some frustrated parents. I probably see some here in this room. I mean, I get
Yep.
emails regularly about it. I think it's something we need to step up and do concurrently. I really do. And I mean, I guess there's never, I don't know. I guess I don't fully appreciate what the scheduling issues are, and I apologize for that if that's going to create consternation. But I think there's been consternation on the flip side with parents and students and faculty, and I don't know if you're coaches that are here in the room, but it is something that I think we put off and shouldn't have.
I just know the amount of work the registrars do starting January 3rd
Yeah.
is all next year. And so any time that we take after that to change things, it sets them back, and they're working up until August 20th at midnight this year, getting kids into master schedules.
So when you're, transportation again, so when you're talking about the shift of like maybe 100 kids, like that's freshmen, because everyone else would stay where they're at, right?
No, it would be 100 kids. So it can't just be 100 freshmen, because then it's another 100 freshmen the following year and another 100, and then it's 400 difference by the end of 4 years. So it's how many people live in this boundary that would go to Century if this was their boundary, whether they're freshmen up to seniors. So it may take 4 years before they get the 100 kids.
Okay. Is there a way to look and see how many that affects, like busing wise? Because I would guess those that aren't busing are gonna take the open boundary option wherever they wanna go.
I don't, it
Does that make
depends.
any sense?
Yes, but maybe, because they don't sign up for busing until later. So we don't know exactly for high school. I can tell you who's in the high school right now that rides the buses, but I don't know freshmen that will be coming up because they're riding buses to middle schools. Or
Okay.
they might not be, they may be walking to middle schools. So-
Okay, good to know, thank you.
As far as the busing, if any child of any age wants to transfer to another school, and they do transfer, provided they can get to the bus stop themselves, they can catch a bus to that school,
If the
correct?
bus is not full already, yes.
Okay. Okay, and then one other question I had about the elementary boundaries. I've heard just talk like, are you ready to say anything about you're considering closing anything?
We have considered options of closing,
You have-
closing an
okay.
elementary school. Yes.
I just didn't know if that was
has-
something that you had
been-
discussed, and
it has
I
been
thought maybe,
discussed.
I didn't know if that's something I should have asked you before, but I just.
It's, it's in the meeting
just
notes. I
didn't-
mean, we've
Oh, yeah, I guess
discussed.
it- I guess
that
it
was
is
a
in the meeting notes.
Clarification, I don't understand, was it a yay vote or a nay vote? When it says the 0 members voted, 10 members voted that are in the minutes.
Oh, whoops.
What, how did they vote?
I'll have to get clarification on that.
Yeah, we'll get clarified.
That
I think
sounds
that
good.
was in discussion as to which recommendation we wanted to bring forward or continue to pursue in terms of how many
So they
options,
just
because we
voted
looked
to
at,
focus on one or the other?
Correct.
It wasn't a yes or a no?
Right,
Okay. We
as
can
far
just
as the
clarify
final.
that, 'cause it doesn't.
yeah, that's the only thing that
Understand.
I remember that we even took a vote on, because we were to the point where we were trying to see if we could come up with a proposal. And for this board meeting, we had to make a decision if we thought we wanted to continue with multiple options or if we wanted to narrow it down to one option.
Okay.
And so that was the decision that was made there, to narrow it down to one option for a recommendation.
Okay.
Okay, so from the board, maybe we had another direction set, and we'd put out some correspondence with regard to that, or notices to our parents. It went in the community newsletter that way. So maybe a turn of events today. I would just need to get a flavor from the board as to what you would like us to do. I know Ms. Clark had presented the idea of, can we just do it concurrently? And previously, we said we were going to wait, so maybe if we could get some direction today from the board as a whole, so we know how to move forward.
So what we're talking about is, the decision is, do we want to go ahead and start the committee?
Yes.
Because it's on the back burner right now. Do we want to go ahead and move forward with the committee because it's already been chosen?
No, the
No,
committee has
we
not
don't
been
have high
chosen for
Oh,
high
it
school.
hasn't been?
No.
Okay. So do we want to move forward with that committee with meetings and discussions? And maybe clarify to me what else?
That's pretty much it, in a
Okay.
nutshell, I think, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it
If
would
the-
be, include recommendations from the bus department, but then also the parents that are on that committee.
Yeah,
and-
so we would be starting the process from exactly as we did with these other two committees, putting it out there, asking for parent volunteers, do a random selection, get them going. I mean, I anticipate that if we were trying to meet a deadline, they would have to meet more often. I know that our Jackie, GIS Jackie, whatever, we had loving, terms of endearment there. But if she's what her availability is, I think she's been receptive to working with us. But I would see that taking at least 2 or 3 times a week if we're trying to get,
How fast are we rushing it?
Yeah,
Because
and then-
you've got public that's going
then
to
we,
get involved
we,
immediately too.
in the previous time that we did this, we had some public hearings, we had focus groups, and if you're, that would just lend itself to push outside of January, I think, especially with the holidays coming.
In this month and in December, it pretty much has to be done.
Well, I
Is
don't
that
know that
right?
we could get it
That's 3
all
weeks.
done, but
Right,
then.
but I'm
again,
saying that, but the first proposal is that what?
I
Just
don't,
clarify
know.
to
We
me.
would have to look at our breaks and the timeline, Jackie's availability to help us kind of put that together. But again, if we're looking at a public hearing and/or some focus groups, I see us going into February. Not, again, that can't be done. We just know that that'll be taxing on the registrars, on the counselors.
I
has
will
a
help.
Has a tendency to just
volunteer
shift
to
some
data
things
entry.
around, but I won't say it's not impossible.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page with that first option. And so with that first option, you also are wanting a deadline. So we would be, so there, I guess there's two different ways to look at
Okay.
it. We get the committee together to start talking about it, as I think Heather said.
Yeah.
Without necessarily a deadline.
Go ahead, Megan.
Oh,
No, I just can't hear her, so I'm asking her to speak into her mic.
oh, I'm sorry. I've never had that said to me before. Just kidding. So I guess the first option, I guess what I interpreted Heather's comment to mean is that we'd get the committee together, but not necessarily have that deadline of February. Maybe you clarify.
Well, and I think it shouldn't be off the table, just given what research comes out of it, is that we see, so tell me what the January deadline, explain that one. Was that just
So calendar rolls over and we start building master schedules and students roll into their high schools and they immediately start selecting the classes.
And by February 1st, that has to be done according to the State Department of Ed.
No,
No?
no. The February 1st is open enrollment transfers,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and whose deadline is that?
the states.
The state?
Yep.
So it's not just ours that we've created?
I guess as part of that lie, I didn't know they kept adding to it.
Yeah, part of open enrollment, but then we still have that flexibility of what's available within our schools and the capacity.
And we could do transfers up through May 15th for 2 of our schools. and
I would
still
like
doing
to
it
see
now,
us try
so.
to do it.
So,
I try
Just
to
to-
at least get that committee going, start with the committee, look what the numbers and the data tell us, and maybe, it's, I mean, it's hard to say
Exactly.
without having any real data in front of us.
Yep.
so let me, I guess, clarify again what the first option is. The first option is just to start the committee without necessarily a hard deadline, just to do the research. Or tell me if that's right.
I mean, I think, I just don't want to take off the table that we could make it still happen. And so I think you put the sense of urgency with the group and the committee that's pulled together, that the goal would be to try and get it for this coming year, if at all possible. And again, without hard numbers and without an active committee. I mean, I totally, Sue,
Nope, you're good.
promise.
You're good.
I mean,
get it.
I was
Yep.
part of that first. I was one of those parents that, I get that. But I guess that's why I'm frustrated, because I thought that was what our plan was, is that we would be doing these concurrently.
But you're
And,
talking for
you
the
know,
elementary, middle schools, and high schools.
Yeah, I thought we were just
All
doing
three.
them in conjunction, and then, yeah. Yeah.
Madam Chair, do you want to call the vote?
aren't
Okay, is
noticed-
everybody clear?
We aren't
that-
noticed for action, so we're just
Oh.
going to do if
You-
we have
It
general.
can't be an official
How do I
vote. We
word
just,
that then?
we just have to, it just has
On a
to, you're just
survey?
gonna have to say your opinion. No, you're just gonna have to say your opinion,
one way or
because
the
we
other.
can't call for a vote.
And I
And
don't
so
wanna make
it's
them
just
jump
up to
through
you
hoops if
to
nobody else feels the same.
say, do you want to go ahead, Megan? Should we just start with you, or are you ready to say what you would like to do?
Yes, voice and
Okay.
opinion. Okay,
Okay.
that's the right wording, thank you. I guess I see Heather's point that we've had a large cry from the community to get on top of this and to be making traction on it. So yeah, I guess that's where I'm at. I would like to see something happening and us moving forward on it. And if push comes to shove and we can't make it happen by the deadline, then we're at least actively working on it. But if it's I guess my understanding is that we're looking at moving 25, 30 kids maybe. That way it grows over the years was what I understood out of.
Because you're not going to pull a junior out of their
You-
current
if
high
they-
school,
But if they want to, they can.
Yeah. So
provided there's room,
But they could have done
though.
that anyway.
No, if the juniors class gets moved, well, that's part of the discussion then.
They would just go
Do
to
they
the first in
automatically have
line.
to go to their new school, or do they get to grandfather in with their own school? And that was
Well-
part of the discussion that we did with the last committee, and so that's.
Well, and the law isn't, I guess the law just says that by February 1st, the kids who live in that enrollment area have first priority. And then on that February 1st deadline, then you can accept other kids outside of that enrollment area, provided there's room.
Correct.
Okay, so if this happens and is completed before February 1st, then, what I just said,
I got it.
I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, I'm sorry.
You're good. I'm understanding, I'm getting it.
So you said that only juniors would be grandfathered in?
No. It's just an example. Anybody who's, in the last time we did this, anybody who was at Pocatello High School, if their boundary got changed, they could stay at Pocatello High School.
Okay, what about her sibling coming in?
That's the other question.
It's, as far as the sibling
I mean, that's
comes,
literally the rest of the questions. We had it at one time that siblings, if the sibling could go, then the sibling went. And now our policy is for transfers. If there's a sibling in the school, so it's staff members first. If there's a staff member at that school, their transfers first. Siblings are second, so if they have a sibling in that school, the sibling is the next group, and then it's random, first come, first served.
so that's already our policy. We don't need to change our policy.
Well, when we did this the last time, siblings automatically went in. There wasn't a transfer.
Wasn't that related to the fact that it was closed boundaries?
We went from open boundaries to closed boundaries.
Right,
Yep.
and so it just doesn't feel like we are going to have those same issues to that extent to me, because the kids can go where they want to go.
Yeah.
They're already there, they're not going to get kicked out, right?
Well, and I also think,
Unless they do a reason for it.
yeah, I mean,
Their attendance is bad or they're extenuating.
Extenuating
But that's
behavior.
only, but our policy only says they won't be accepted for a transfer request. It
Their
doesn't say
transfer
they
can be
could,
revoked also at that time.
but they wouldn't have transferred in, they were already there.
Right.
So
But-
is it safe to say that no one is going to be
No, it's
kicked
not.
out of their school? How about we make that a policy, that no one will be kicked out of their school? Because I think that's simple to say, you know, that you're not going to all of a sudden be at the bottom of the list for transfers
No.
when you were already going there. I think that's pretty straightforward.
so kids don't have to reapply for a transfer every year if they don't live in the.
Not in middle school and high school,
Okay.
and not in elementary.
Not in elementary.
And I was just
Second year,
referring
that's
to the
the
ones who
Brandon
actually lived in the
State law.
boundaries before
Yeah.
the change, but anyway,
These two have.
so I would be happy for the committee to begin
started.
talking.
Well, obviously, this is an important issue a lot of people are interested in. I mean, we want to make sure we get our schools utilized properly and not overpopulated, and the community is obviously very interested in this issue as well. But I understand the logistics of what you're doing. I've been sitting in meetings and heard about the difficulty of this over a period of months, and I understand that it's a complicated process and you have to start at the elementaries and work your way up. So, I mean, I think we should, get the ball rolling because the public's very interested in it. The sooner we start, we can get more input. The public can understand that we appreciate their concerns. But I think that realistically, given what you've told us, I think there should be the expectation that it's unlikely that we're going to be able to get it accomplished according to the deadlines that you have to meet. And so I do think it's a good idea to get the ball rolling, but I think it's with the realization, though, that it's unlikely that we're not going to be able to get it done before next year.
So I guess I'd like to clarify too, like as Ray is saying, that I recognize too that I want this process to start, which, I mean, we've decided that quite a while ago, but I don't want to cut out public discourse, opportunity for public forums. I don't want to over, just cut that out.
You know,
I want those things to make sure that they happen.
It will be much more successful.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's concerned and they want input and
And the
yeah.
committee that we've already established has a number of parents. It's a fairly large committee.
So that committee was specifically for elementary and for middle school.
We did decide on the makeup for the high school committee, so correct? 2?
Yes, we haven't sent any invitations for high school. But
Right,
we can do
I
that
understand.
first thing tomorrow morning. So,
Mr. Facer,
If
do you
that's-
feel good about that?
I do.
Okay.
I agree with.
All right, I think we
I
have
agree
our
with what Ray
answer.
was
Okay,
saying.
so there's your guidance.
Okay, that's- yep.
Is there
Thank you.
anything
That's
else?
what I needed.
Then tomorrow
Yep.
morning, we
Okay,
can
we'll just move right forward.
You said it better.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
thanks.
I think that I thought our public comment was supposed to be at the beginning. But, so I'm wondering, do we have the public comment before the update? I'm sorry. I just realized that was supposed to be at the beginning.
No, I think that for the regular board meeting, we moved it to the beginning because it has to be taken place before any action.
Oh,
But
but at
we are
the
not
work
noted, yeah,
session?
for the work sessions.
Okay.
But if that's something that you guys are interested in doing, then we can certainly move that for work sessions as well.
Oh, okay, after today, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Jonathan Bowles will present the following Highland update and the PV Tech update.
Okay, board members, in your packet, there are a few addendums that you can, those just came this morning and were uploaded this morning. And so if you'd like to take the week, we can then discuss that more next week. Kind of, again, these are just draft renderings of the interior and the exterior and the interior. I'll tell you, some of you have already seen these sketches, these drawings and so forth. Again, they are draft. Some of the windows in the commons area, we decided that, the windows needn't go all the way to the ground, but they'll be held off the ground by 12 to 18 inches. That matches and helps it look good there.
With the same stone that is on
Correct,
the
same
side.
stone, so it ties in well.
And for snow removal purposes.
Correct.
It's a lot less red.
Yes, yeah, that was some feedback.
And that would be, thank you to Travis Bell.
Yeah, a little less red there. So again, these are just some draft, so we could, if you want to review those, and we can discuss those more if you have any questions or thoughts at the next board meeting. I did want to update again on the small gym at Highland. There were some pictures that were included in there, basically what we went through to help save that gym floor.
Okay.
So that
Did we save it?
We did, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Thanks to the restoration company there. And so, it was actually done before the tryouts of our, of the Highland girls basketball team a week ago Monday.
The day of.
Yeah, the day
It
of,
was
they were literally finishing.
Pretty miraculous.
Yep, and so they had a big wrestling tournament for the little wrestlers on Saturday, and so there are a few fans at some negative air going underneath the floor, again, trying to dry that out a little bit more, but they were able to pull out the bleachers and use the gym, so.
Jonathan, I got a
Yes.
question. The sprinkler system went off accidentally, and maybe you could refresh my memory what caused that?
You bet, you bet.
Oh, there-
It wasn't, yes, it was
That
an
was a-
accident. Basically, there was a junction box, a J box electrical, that as we had to reroute the electrical,
It was a main feeder to a panel.
Okay, I remember
Feeder
now.
to the panel.
Yeah.
And it was cut on both sides, and easily it should have just been able to pull, but it went through this junction box. The contractor didn't know it was there, and so when they grabbed the wire on the outside during the demo, they pulled that junction box about 10 feet, and it broke off the sprinkler head, causing flood to come, or to the sprinkler head to release its water, come through the ceiling in about a 10 by 10 section there, and that's what alerted the fire department, alerted our maintenance. Once that flow happens in those, that sprinkler system, it calls everybody, so.
And then they're taking liability for
Yes,
their
yes.
mistake and everything. Great, wonderful. I remember now. Thank you.
Correct.
Yeah, we don't have to, it has nothing to do with
Correct.
us, and it
Well,
won't be
there's-
paid for by us or our insurance.
Yeah, there's still things to work through there, but yes, that's where we're headed.
But are you referring to when the sprinklers went off in the kiln, the overheated kiln?
No, I'm
No.
I'm
Okay.
specifically about the
Okay.
gym.
The gym.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. So just a quick update on the demo, if you haven't driven by there, all the buildings down that will be down at least for the winter there. I will mention, so we were concerned because the transformer for the entire building is on the back side of the D wing. That's that one building, if you drive by, it's still standing there. The main, how many is there? 3, 4, 5 different cable runs go underneath the gym floor, the old gym floor, into the remaining of the building. We were very concerned about what type of condition and the location of those. And it was confirmed, and we had a great operator that found those just literally 3 inches to the top of the concrete, 4 inches from the top of the concrete to the pipe. And so we have to bury those. Is the least expensive, and so we're looking at a timeline to do that. Obviously, the power will be cut from Highland, so we need to coordinate that.
They have to reroute those?
We'll need to bury them.
Okay, you got to reroute them then.
We will reroute them, and we'll do everything ahead of time, lay the pipe. But yeah, Jim, I got some pictures for you. It was.
Saw 'em in Boise, didn't we?
Yeah, I think I
Yeah,
sent
we
it to Dr. Howell. Just how close to the top. When it got in the other side of the gym, they were 18 inches below the surface. We probably could have worked with that. But since they're literally just inches below the top of grade there, and the condition of the pipe, really, we would have had issues, a couple years down the road there, so.
So I guess I thought that Idaho Power had rerouted everything before with the big, the thing around the building.
Okay.
That's
But
not
there
I-
are 2 different transformers, is that
But
what?
that's not
One-
Idaho Power's responsibility.
Well, we had to work with them.
Right, they have to shut the power off, but that's not their responsibility.
Correct. So, and Jim, jump in here as I am understanding electricity. So there's one transformer that feeds several different places, and part of this is through the different upgrades, right? The E building was built 2 or 3, years after the main building. So what was rerouted was the upper B power.
Okay.
And that went along the hallway that was demoed. That is the power that had to be rerouted.
Kind of go out farther into the parking lot?
Correct, out in the parking lot
Okay.
to the north. There
And
was
so
also.
that was only the power to the B building?
That is correct.
Okay.
And then we knew there was power that went and fed the C wing, the E wing there, that went from, again, the transformer kind of under the small engine shop, underneath the hallway there, and then underneath the gym floor.
But isn't there a distribution center with that transformer? Don't they have breakers there?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, so that transformer feeds one distribution center, and then they got breakers that feed each one of the different.
Correct. I know there's a vault there, just right outside of the small gym as well. That I assume that's what you're referring to as a distribution center.
Yep.
It's underneath there. So anyway, that's electrical that needs to be rerouted or just dropped, so we can basically put footers. We can do everything we need to build the structure on top of it.
Okay, as we look at these drafts, then this building there's an add-on building to the north of the auditorium. classrooms areas.
Which,
That will be the
which
elec-
one are you looking for?
Okay,
Oh, that's where the transformer is now, will be
I'm
located.
I'm on page 11.
11 of the exteriors?
Yeah.
Okay.
That will be the mechanical or the electrical room then? Is that where that's at?
Oh,
That, I'm trying to see which.
page
one.
11 of exterior?
Yeah.
Let me get my bookmark up there.
That's the side that faces the auditorium.
So if it faces the auditorium, that's actually probably the stage. I'd have to get the main one, the transformer,
You on
the
page 11?
the transformers to the
Why is
east.
mine different? Isn't that
Should be
page
the
11?
same.
Oh, 8.
8.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking
Okay,
at
now you got me.
page 8.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So where are you pointing?
This, so right there in the front where
Oh,
you're,
yeah,
that,
yeah.
that first building, that first add-on that you're looking at, that would be the electrical room? Or is that?
I thought
where-
it was that one with the white door, the gray with the white door.
Correct. So it's the one facing the east. That, I
Okay.
believe.
With those
is
pink
the
trees next
exact-
to it.
Yes. with
That
the
aren't
little
gonna be
pink
there.
trees. Correct. Pink trees. Sorry. Yeah. And again, we're looking at that and make sure.
And that's basically where that transformer and stuff is right now.
That is correct.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
correct. But yeah, that's the music rooms, and so I believe that would be more like a drama. If I remember the layout, I'd have to double check and make sure.
So that electricity, part of it is going around to the B building and part of it is still going to go through?
That is correct.
Okay.
It would be hundreds of thousands if we rerouted that outside, and a lot more time delayed. Yeah. So we feel very confident that we can just bury it deeper. So,
Sounds good.
yeah. Okay. Again, even more brief on the a PV Tech update. If you haven't driven by, we've got two lifts of asphalt, 4 inches of asphalt there, and it's painted there. We have the cement entrance as well. So we're just finishing up the final touches. They still say by the end of the month. Maybe it might be that first week in December, but we're making some good progress there.
We have a meeting tomorrow still?
We do not, thank you. We do not have a meeting tomorrow. We'll won't have a meeting next Wednesday, tomorrow, but we will have one the following on that 20th.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, Doug will cover the following, I'm sorry, did you say anything?
No, I just said thanks.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to move on if you still had a comment. Dr. Howe will cover the following. Oh, I'm sorry. Jonathan, we did have one more question that Doug, mentioned that you would ask me to bring it up in this meeting, and that is, we had complaints that it was really, really loud, the construction, and that it was distracting to students. And one suggestion that was made that Doug wanted me to mention here in this meeting is if we just provide, just the disposable earplugs at the office that the kids can stop by and pick up if they would like.
Okay.
And we're trying to keep it simple.
Yes, and that's we're doing all that we can to try to minimize that and to keep the timeline, the schedule. Obviously, testing is very important there, and so we'll work at that. But sure, anything that's very simple that we can provide. Some, I mean, they will also feel it as well when they were doing some of the demo. We checked with some of those classrooms. You definitely can feel as they're dropping. Yeah, not dropping, but as they're demoing some of these large concrete slabs. The footers on that old building were just massive.
Wow.
I think they knew the soils were not, all that great, so they went overkill with cement. No rebar, but it was a lot of cement.
Wow.
But yes,
So
we
I
could
guess I
definitely
just,
do that.
okay, I just wanted to make sure that the rest of the board, get your feedback.
And
Any
there
feedback?
there will be that in the future. as
Should we
well.
say yes, we'll provide them unless there's feedback?
Easy?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's very.
Any feedback?
We'll
Okay,
make sure
then we'll
we
move
have
on.
in the office there.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. Okay, so Dr. Howe will cover the following: board retreat, follow-up, ISBA convention follow-up, cell phone policy committee timeline.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. We, first up are the strategic goals. And you'll recall from our board retreat a couple of weeks ago that we looked at some goals that had been in place for a while, and we wanted to refresh those. And I think from our discussion, we were able to create or gather the information from the various opinions of the board and captured the essence of each one of those here in this document. We will not vote on this document tonight, but if you would like to lend any insights, if there's something you don't think we've addressed sufficiently, we can pick it up before next week's adoption. And if we didn't adopt it next week, we could always catch it later as well. But just your feedback on what we have thus far.
Okay, do you want to start, Megan, or do you want to just say, does anybody have any feedback?
Can Jim start?
All right, okay, I'll start. Okay, I'll start. The first goal was mine that I suggested, and it's a little different than what I intended, because a district motto or mission is think more, learn more, be more together. So that's very much on that same page right up there in the corner. My intention with that first goal was to focus on what we have in common, as opposed to how we are different. And really, I really kind of want it to be that, because during COVID, the kids were individually learning, they were separate at home, and that collaboration wasn't there and as much. But also, when we're talking about differences in all kinds of differences, we could name 100. But so I just didn't want it to blend in with what's already been stated. And so that's kind of so my intention for that was to actually have it be a goal from the board that we would actually want active opportunities to look for ways that we are let me see what I wrote. I don't know where it is. But anyway, it doesn't have to be worded exactly that way, but that's what my intention was. I didn't want to just repeat the district, it's already up there in the corner. I wanted to be sure it was different, and it was, focus on what we have in common. Really, just focus on what we have in common. And then later, I guess actually I was saying kind of two things. No, actually, it was kind of both of those things together, because in the paragraph, it does say collaborative environment. And so I can't remember how I worded it, but I just really wanted that focus on what we have in common and also collaboration. So any thoughts on that? Any input? Or do you want to move? Jim, do you have any input on that?
I'm good.
Good with it?
No, I think you have a good idea. I think that if you could just come up with some more specific wording
Okay.
that you would want to add, and we can discuss that.
I just really want it to, I guess we can just say, promote unity,
Within the collaborative environment. I mean,
and focus on, just to focus, I guess we can just start off with, focus on things that unite us. We could start off with that. Focus on things that unite us, and then promote unity, and then skip down to through a collaborative environment where learners and staff are encouraged to think critically, learn continuously, and achieve more together. I think that, or just say achieve together, because that again is the, I don't want to repeat the district motto. I want it to make sure that, they don't just kind of go over that thinking, I've already seen that, So I just want to make sure that anyway, does that sound good, Ray?
Yeah.
Okay. Is anybody else okay with that?
I guess, we can talk about this more when you get your specific language, but I think it's important to reiterate the school's mission, or the district's mission. I don't think it detracts from it. If anything, that we are supportive of it as well. But
So,
I know you're not
Renee,
taking
did
away
you?
from it, but I think it's,
Oh, no. No, I
but
just
the other
didn't want
thing
to repeat
I
it.
wanted to mention is during that meeting, we talked a lot about creating strategic goals that were measurable or smart and those kinds of things. And I know, even at the conference when it came up, we talked with other districts that, we have that luxury, if you will, that it's not only the superintendent and the board and immediately your principal staff. We have this robust cabinet that has their goals with their individuals. I don't want to call them silos in a negative way, but in their areas of responsibility. One thing I would love to see, and maybe we get them in bits and pieces, but when they do their goal setting after they've done it with their crew, if you will, or your teacher, your principals, or your buildings, being able to see their goals and being able to, I know you do, and you're reviewing them obviously because they're setting it and that filters it way up. I wouldn't mind seeing those kind of specific goals, and then maybe periodically, how are they marking against those goals throughout
The
the year?
benchmark, sure.
The benchmarks, that's the
Yeah,
word I'm
yeah.
looking for, because I
Okay.
think we're a little bit removed from those day-to-day task goals that you and then your cabinet filtering down to principals.
Yeah.
But yet, we are supposed to be overseeing them. So I think I like that we have more strategic overarching goals that maybe aren't necessarily those smart, trackable ones, but I know they are there. We know they exist.
Absolutely.
So do you want,
I
do you
would
want
like
to
to
add any,
see
do
them.
you want to add any wording to this?
And
And
I
which
don't
one
know
would
if
you
it's
like
more of a
to add?
procedural thing than actually a goal. Am I making sense?
Yes, you are.
If you,
very
I
much
just
so.
want to clarify if you want to add
And I was just
to
looking
one of
down to
these.
three.
I don't think I'm adding to as much as I'm asking for to complement these strategic goals so we better understand what those.
Absolutely. And you'll recall from our conversation too, that we had decided that Amy would provide you either a verbal or a written update monthly in regard to what's happening through professional
Curriculum.
development,
Yeah.
student achievement, and I think the goal setting would be a nice addition to that in the beginning stages, maybe benchmarking it probably, February-ish, and then we will have the results in our continuous improvement planning.
I mean, I guess, only because I see Janelle here in my eye
Yeah,
line.
and
but,
that was part of it
you know,
too, with special
yeah,
education.
Yeah,
We-
trying
we
to
were
see,
adding
like,
Janelle
special
into-
ed and, seeing some of those, that would be helpful for me. And so I don't know, in answer to your
Oh, and we
questions,
don't
I
have our
know
special education goal here either.
how we
Because
build that
we
into
were going
your-
to have
think
one that we were going to specifically,
It's down in number 8.
oh, did I miss
Yeah,
that?
advocate for support resources to ensure all district programs are robust, high quality, inclusive of special education services.
Yeah, I would like the goal to be, just to acknowledge special education in our goals.
Yeah.
So
I
high
think it does
quality.
an 8.
Yeah, in the actual goal. But, anyway, back, okay, go ahead.
So if you have other suggestions, oh, I'm so sorry, you
Go
go,
ahead.
please.
Okay, I have some clarifying questions
Okay.
on strategic goals, and I think Heather already touched on a lot of my questions or somewhat answered them. But when we do these strategic goals, where does it go from here? Because in my thought process, it goes to the superintendent, and then he says how. Because I don't want them to be goals that we just say, yep, did that, and have no substance to how did we do that.
We were trying to get them a little bit more measurable in our last meeting, and if you want, we can put it off till our next work session, or we can finish it here, whichever.
Well, I guess my question then is, going off what Heather said, is there a way that we can say, you see all those goals that everyone else is making, could you map that out for us with our goals?
Yes.
To incorporate them
Yeah.
in these actual goals?
Yeah, so we have a kind of a subset on this is what we're looking for
Yeah.
here to be able to say we did do this. Or
Yeah,
this
'cause-
is what our staff are doing to do that.
Right. Yes, let me think how best to do that. It can be done. When I look at fiscal accountability, that's going to be Jonathan in mid-year budget adjustments. And then as we prepare the budget for the upcoming school year and where we landed in terms of financial management at the end of a year. So I think that one will take care of itself, but some of these others, we can do some benchmarking throughout the year. And again, maybe provide that in the reporting. And again, whether that's verbal or whether it's in the written statements that we provide, I think we can touch on every one of these.
So we probably won't really make a goal. We'll probably just receive information. Is that right?
I think that's what I'm asking for.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, we won't make a goal? I didn't
Well,
understand your question very well.
Well, actually, maybe, did you want to change a goal on this?
No, I think these
No,
are.
no, I'm talking to Megan.
Oh, sorry.
No, I guess what I was asking for is when he sees everyone else's goals, like professional development, special education, then he can say, this is how it
It rolls up.
boosts
Yeah.
and fits under this goal, so that we
Oh.
know what the measure is. What
You
are we
bet. And I
measuring?
think we could just
So
take,
working together to create a measurable goal.
Yes.
yeah, like a
Okay.
sampling
Okay.
of the goals that our teachers are working on.
Okay.
Whether it be a
And-
department goal at a high school or at secondary school, or it's a grade level goal at the elementary. I think we could provide you an overview of that goal setting and maybe the benchmarking along the way through professional development, through any
So we
interim
can-
assessments that we might be giving, and then certainly at the end, how we did on that goal setting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So-
And I think
so
I work with
Megan, you're
Brenda,
saying-
AJ, and Sue, and Janelle very easily on that.
So Megan, you're saying to incorporate, get that collaboration, and then incorporate those measurable goals that are coordinate with at the building level or at the, yeah, and then coordinate with them to be able to establish those measurable goals.
Yes.
Okay, I
Just
love
to
that.
clarify, so I understand what you're asking though, Deanna, is I don't think it's us. I think
No,
that's
it's
what's
Megan.
happening.
No, this is Megan's suggestion.
Right, but I'm clarifying what you had just said prior to Megan, I think. I don't think it's us telling them what their measurable goals are. They are
No.
working on those and rolling it up so that it falls under what our strategic goal, and how they match up to the strategic goal. So we're not creating additional goals or goals that are gonna be rolled downward, it's rolling upwards. Okay.
Well,
That's
that's
what-
not
that's what
exactly
I
what Megan
And
said.
maybe a little more back and forth, like,
Yeah, a collaborative
like
effort.
like this is your goal. We see this is what you're doing to meet the develop highly qualified workforce. And then maybe we offer a little more guidance on something we want to see out of it.
So that
but
our
they get to
goal
come up with
is,
the goals.
so our goal is reflective of that collaboration?
Yes.
Okay. I think
A little-
that's,
Yeah, a collaboration.
okay, so Jim and Ray, how do you guys feel about that?
No, I think I agree with what all three of the ladies said.
Okay.
I guess my question would be, do you want to rephrase the wording and look at this again?
Yeah,
Or-
Doug said he would work on that, right? Were you going to work on rephrasing
Oh,
that?
I'm just going to work on how we provide you with updates in regard to the goals that you have.
Okay,
So I'm not going to change your goals.
well,
That's up to
Okay.
you, and if you want to make any suggestions for, between now and next week, before we adopt them, or if we need another work session in December to, refine the wording or the language. But I can tell you, as far as the reporting on those, we will be ready to go as soon as you define
right.
or quantify what they are.
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I think we should just move this to December then.
Okay.
With that.
You bet.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so next on the agenda, oh, I'm sorry,
Oh,
any other
Well, I like the
comments?
way Heather explained it about the goals of rolling upwards rather than more than rolling downwards.
I like that. Ray, did you have any other?
No, I think that's great. I would just say that if people want to change the wording, let's think about whatever wording you want in there. And I agree with what everyone said. It sounds good. If you want to change the wording to reflect that, let's go ahead and do that before we finalize it.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks, Ray. Any other? Next is public and written comment. Written comment was
oh,
received.
Madam
still
Chair,
have
can I
another-
just?
Oh, I'm so
Maybe
sorry.
mention
Cell phone.
Um,
the operating
You can
principles?
finish with
Yeah.
what you were going to.
So in regards to operating principles, you have some there. We've made a couple changes or modifications in the last, I think, 2 months, really. But then one that came up, and I would like for you to think about this between now and the next meeting, is we've had, since the beginning of the year, a number of opportunities to be in touch with our legal counsel. And Madam Chair, you had mentioned that maybe we would like to have some board discussion in regard to the board being able to contact legal counsel directly rather than through me on
Yeah.
occasion. And
yep.
so I would like the board to think about whether that's and again, we'll have to
We
visit
just
with
have
our.
to have a policy that states
And it will
whatever it
fit,
is.
I think, in the operating principles. We could slide it right in here. We could look at some other policies that districts may have. Again, we'd have to take into account our legal counsel's opinion on this, but I think if you'd like to generate some thoughts about whether, again, you would like those to work through me, whether you think you should contact them individually, whether you contact them as a chair and vice chair, but that would be, those are the suggestions. Now, I know that when I mentioned this to Amy White, who provides our legal counsel through Anderson, Julian, and Hall, that she said, if you're contacting them just randomly, then that has the potential to add a lot of expense to the district's legal bills. And so just keep that in mind. But any questions that you might have, any thoughts for discussion, we could pick it up next week before you adopt these operating principles. And if you have
Okay.
questions, give me a call. I could run them by Amy White, and then we could see how this might work best for you. And that's,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really just in reference to if there's a question that a board member has in terms of what they can do legally as a board member or that affects them legally as a board member, can they ask that question? So anyway, I don't really, since we're not discussing it now, let's just put that off until our next
Okay. Yeah.
work session, but that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah,
So
I just wanted the
we'll
other
just-
board members to start thinking about it for that possible discussion next week.
Okay.
Okay, thank
That
you.
sounds great, thank you.
I think that's it for me.
Did anybody have
ISBA
board?
follow-up.
Yeah, ISBA follow-up that they wanted to talk about. What was the next?
I do. Okay, I agreed to what we went through when we started talking about employees of a board member. I felt like we threw a small district under the bus, and they lost that. And I don't know how we can, I don't know if when we meet with the legislators, if there's any way we can see if they can kind of resurrect that thing or whatever, but I just felt awful that didn't pass. And I mean, I was excited that, okay, it got back on there, and I was hoping that would work, but it actually failed, and it went backwards on us, and
So what would be, oh, go ahead.
So, since I played a large part of that, I think the thing that I mistakenly did is I let the gentleman sitting at the table behind me when the charter schools wanted to come on, oh yeah, just let them on, it's not a big deal, when in fact, if I'd thought about that, I think that's probably a bigger part that may have helped to make it fail
Right.
or have it fail. But the other comment that had been made is that what legislator is even going to take the time to pick this up? Unfortunately, I think that also, I mean, and I'll be curious to hear what the legislators say, but I also think it's just such a small, minute thing, they may, and I don't know, Ray, do you even know what we're talking about?
It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's about.
Okay,
yeah.
so, I mean, it became a discussion, and someone tried to amend it, because the original amendment was just for 400, and someone spoke up and said, well, why not, just make it 1,000, and someone jumped up and said, well, we have 1,200, why not just make it 12,000? And so I popped up and said, why do we have any kind of, limit?
Do away with the
It
number.
should just be.
Yeah, so the
And then,
resolution
can I-
that we.
so the other piece of it is then a chamber, or not chamber, the charter school representative spoke up and said, well, be sure you change that amendment so charter schools can be included in this, and that's where I kind of went, did not, the momentum got a hold of me, holding that mic in front of everybody. And you're right, ultimately it failed, and so yes, it kind of ripped the rug under the small district. But
did.
like I said, I think where I kind of felt, well, I felt bad, but then at the same time felt like what legislator, it's just not a banner waving kind of issue, and I don't know that it would have gotten anywhere anyway. But we can I'm certainly open to talking to legislators and seeing, but I don't know, does that even happen? when these kind of things, I mean, if the ISBA doesn't pick it up, do they even get any traction with it? I don't know.
They could potentially, I mean, because they'll have other resolutions and motions
come up.
moving from different professional organizations.
Yeah.
So it's possible. I mean, I think, Jim, it would be appropriate for you to mention that. We could throw it in the agenda as just an item you could touch on and just say, for your information, or please be aware, and then share your thoughts.
Well, you
And
know,
Heather, if you had-
I was supporting
Yeah.
Heather on what she wanted to do, and I guess I was kind of being selfish on our part because, you know, we kind of have an interest in that and at the moment, but then when it failed, I just went, we used to that small school district under the bus because it probably would have passed if we hadn't said anything.
Yeah.
But
and
then we
if
weren't the
I-
only ones, like you
if
said,
it
it went to
reflected
800, then it went to
poorly.
1,200, then, you know, it just kept snowballing and getting bigger and bigger, and if we would have just stopped it at 400 or 600,
Or
it
1,000.
probably would have
Yeah,
passed.
and
Yeah.
just
On that,
to clarify that our resolution was rejected by the Legislative Council, which makes it so there's no limit. That was rejected by the one that we submitted. And so the one that they were trying for is, can we have an exception for small schools because they have an exceptional difficulty?
And basically, we were trying to push the same thing that got turned down.
And I believe on the agenda, Ms. Johnson, correct me if I'm wrong, we have board resolutions, ISBA resolutions at the end of that agenda already?
For the board work session with legislators?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's where we could pick it up, Mr.
Okay.
Geiser.
And just to clarify, in the charter schools, there was like over 6,000 votes, and theirs made up only 235. So it's actually not very many, but that's just a side
Right,
note.
but it could have been a reason why other districts or other voters said no.
Right, and you're probably right.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
probably had more of a,
I see.
I mean, I don't know. So,
I see what
you know,
you're saying.
if I have misrepresented our district in that moment, my
You didn't,
apologies.
you did not misrepresent us. We were right behind you the whole way because we were wanting what you were wanting and not thinking about how that was going to affect the school district.
Yeah, with the exception. But yes, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I guess we just have one more thing.
Sorry. I'm
Oh,
happy to
I'm-
back Jim up on that one, but I have another one from the convention.
Oh, yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
I guess to give a little bit of background, I got to go to the new board member meetings. And one of the things discussed that I thought could be beneficial to us if everyone liked it was that the Ponderell School District, their superintendent spoke to us and explained how she takes notes of anyone that does public comment, and then as part of her job, she responds to them throughout the next week or so, and then reports back to the board on the response given to those people that make public comment, because we're not allowed to comment to them. And so therefore, it gives an avenue for them to have their questions or concerns answered or addressed, whether or not they're happy with that. So I thought that was a really good idea from that superintendent.
I think that sounds great.
Just one more thing.
Yeah, I mean, because I guess the situation is a little awkward when it's against the open meeting law for us to respond, because then that is a discussion, and it wasn't on the agenda as a discussion. It was only on the agenda as a comment, just to clarify.
Yeah, and we usually only have like one or two, if that.
Yeah,
So-
and we go like months without any, so.
Okay, all right. Got it.
Um,
Tony,
Did you, Ray, did you have any feedback on that before we move on?
No.
Okay. The cell phone? Oh, I'm sorry. Anything else from the ISBA? I don't want to move too fast, but I want to move it. I want to keep going. So just let me know. Okay, cell phone? Policy update?
I know that, I don't know if it got forgotten or not, but we did have a timeline, and somebody asked me about the timeline that was presented at the last board work session. I just wanted to know, there was a suggestion to eliminate one of the elementary administrators, and that wasn't corrected. I just put the timeline back on here, but eliminate one of the, as for the committee, and make it another secondary, because it's middle school and high school. But did we have any questions about that timeline, or did you want me to look at anything differently?
You're talking about February, one elementary school teacher, is that what you're talking about, number 5?
No, 2 elementary administrators. They talked about
Oh.
cell phones not being
Yeah,
as
it is
big as a
number 5.
prominent. issue in elementary, so maybe have a little heavier load on the secondary administrators because they deal with it on a consistent basis,
So you're
right?
proposing a 3-1?
Yeah, that's what
All right.
they asked me to do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But-
It's just not the same thing.
I just wanted to know if there was any other questions with the timeline that somebody had asked with the timeline. Is that right, Renee? Okay. Was there any questions about the timeline?
I
or-
think it was more of just a reminder that we are wanting to complete the book study
Boundaries.
by
December.
December's work session, and kind of just a timeline of where we're at in the
Our
process.
6
make sure
chapters
that
was
we're
by
ready. Yes.
December.
Right.
Yes.
Full book by
Oh,
February.
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say
Yeah.
the full.
And we haven't set a date for that book study yet, right?
I thought it was the 6th, off the top of my head. I can look.
December
Renee
6th?
can-
The December work session? Is that what you're
Yeah.
asking about?
December, is it December 6th, Renee?
So that'd be.
December
I don't want to
9th,
miss.
10th,
Because
December
we
10th, I
set a
think.
date
It's
last.
the 9th.
We set a date, the 9th?
Isn't it?
Okay. We set a date last time.
Okay, so it is December 10th, Tuesday is the work session, yes.
We were all wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
But yes, Tanya,
Yeah.
I think that's what we wanted, was just a refresher on the schedule.
Right.
Well,
Oh, I'm so sorry to throw one more thing out there.
Yeah,
We almost forgot on the,
I know.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I forgot to bring this up. Jonathan mentioned that we should bring this up at this meeting. When do we want a public forum, just for them to be able to come and see the design? We had talked about that.
well, I still want to make a comment about the cell phone.
Oh,
thing.
yes, oh, I'm so sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Right now, it says that there's going to be one school board member on the committee. I just would like to say that I have read the entire book. I took extensive notes on it. I've reviewed my notes. I've read 2 books by this author. He's superb. He's a superb social scientist. He's an honest researcher. I very much would like to be on this committee.
You know what, maybe we can make it 2 board members.
That's what I'm saying.
'Cause I kinda
Perhaps,
wanna be
you
on
know,
it,
may-
too.
Yeah, well, you know, maybe you, I
But
don't know.
not in place of you. If
Yeah,
it's
no,
only
no,
one,
that's what I wanted to
you-
say. I wanted to say
that's
right up
certainly
front
you.
that I'm very interested in this
Okay.
topic. I think it's very important. Like I said, I've read several books by this author. As a matter of fact, his first book, I've read that 2 times and reviewed my notes on it. So I'm very, very interested in this. I think it's very important. I'm glad you brought it to our attention. And I just want to say that I'm very, very interested in being on there. So if anybody else is, maybe we should look at
Yeah.
extending it to 2 or 3
Yeah,
or
I would
however
love to be
many.
on that too.
3.
We can't
Not
have
3, okay.
No, we can't do 3, but I would love to be on that as well. And so, but Renee, Ray, not in place of you. I mean, you asked to be the first, so that's totally fine. But if we could do, I think we 2 would be fine if it's okay with everybody else. Everybody okay with that? And we don't, this isn't really anything we're adopting. It's just guidance, right?
I think my only concern, much like with the committees with the elementary school, in the border redrawing and kind of reflective on what happened with our Highland, is that I think board members need to be, could be present but not participate. In order for it to make it, the ability for the committee to work effectively and be able to share things, because as we've been told in board training, in that when a board member is present and a board member speaks, it then becomes more weighted to their comment versus allowing the committee to focus and come up with their proposal and then bring it to the board so that the whole board can participate and be involved in the conversation. Because I think
I like that.
it's enough of a weighty conversation that I think we all want to weigh in on. But
I
I think
like
we
that.
need to let the committee do their work first.
I like that.
So this is an advisory committee?
Yeah. Yep, it's an advisory committee.
I think we'll have plenty of, because honestly, Ray, I would love to hear what the research you've done. And, I think given the weight of what this decision will be for the district, I would like to get that the community advice and let that committee work and do unencumbered by, say, a board member being present.
So on that, should we change it to a cell phone policy advisory committee? I don't think it matters. but I'm just going to throw it out there.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
think
just my
fine.
opinion.
Just to
I
make
don't know
sure
other
that it's
board
very
members can
clear.
weigh in on
I
that,
agree
but
with it. I
that's-
think
that's
it's
kind
great.
of, I think
Well,
important for
and-
them to
And we
work.
talked about that already in our policy. We specified that, what the role would be. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
But I
then,
think too, if we recognize that it was Mrs. Furness that brought that forward for us to look at the book study, so if we're going to put some weight with that, I wonder too what her thoughts and opinions, and maybe you can express those as we move it through the discussion, but you, and I'm not trying to speak for you, but just
Yeah,
sharing that.
Yeah. Megan, did you have any other suggestions or?
I don't think this pertains to exactly what we're talking about right now, but my other suggestion would be, I'm just looking over the list of people on the committee. Now, I just feel like it might be a misstep to not have, like, we have one secondary teacher. It'd be a misstep to not have two, one from high school, one from middle school, because they're two totally different beasts of children at each.
That's great, yeah.
And then with only one board member, that puts us at 12, and I feel like that's a pretty full committee.
Yeah.
so then you would say that, so then are we talking about not having a board member on there at all? Or
No.
saying that the board member is non-participating or?
Yeah.
Or not, are they taking a vote? on-
That we would be.
This is
doing
not
that.
this is not an adoption
Right.
committee, it's just an
No,
advisory.
it's just an advisory.
Yeah.
But what Megan was clarifying is she just wanted to be sure that we had, well, I guess, Megan, you could say, she wanted to have middle school represented and high school represented because they're really kind of two different things.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm fine with what
I
Megan
think
said. I
that's
just
a
want to
great
follow up
idea.
with what Heather had to say.
Oh,
And just get a clarification on that. Because when I sat in on the fifth grade social studies adoption committee, I limited my participation so as not to influence what people had to say. But, I was gathering information. If I had something relevant to say, I said it. I wasn't trying to affect anybody's opinion. But I was a non-voting member. I was participating but non-voting. And so I just want to clarify what your thoughts are on that, Heather.
I think it's hard for us not to be participatory and be influential in these meetings. And I think,
these are in their board advisory committees so that we can have that information. So I guess all of our committees are.
I see your point, and this isn't confrontational or adversarial in any way.
No.
I understand exactly what you're saying, because we're going to have a discussion, and all of us are going to vote on it. So I guess what I would wonder is, if that's the case, do you want no school board member on there, or we're not really taking a vote, right? This isn't an
No, it's not
adoption.
a
It's
There
not
will be
a,
a recommendation.
It's
Yeah.
not
The
a,
advisory committee, we bring the board a recommendation.
yeah. And then it's a discussion at that point.
yeah. Well, I agree. I agree that exactly with what you said, that you might have an undue influence on what people have to say. I would imagine that people get on the committee, probably some of them have opinions ahead of time. I'm very interested in hearing what the public has to say.
I am too.
Of course, I'm very interested in this topic also.
There's
So
a lot
I would
to
say that if I were
digest
on
and
there,
think about it.
I would not be trying to influence anyone's opinion. I would more or less do what I did in the fifth grade social studies curriculum. And AJ was there, and was it Kirk Johnson? He's at Chubbuck.
Thompson.
And I think that I tried not to have an influence on people. But if I had something pertinent to say, I did say it. I wasn't trying to influence their opinion. But I think they came to a superb conclusion. And so I guess,
And I know Amy had mentioned that the parents had really appreciated so I agree with that we should really be more observing and really listen.
yeah, try not to
What
make an
they
untold
want.
influence. So I think that's a point well made.
I love it.
Is that,
Because
was
really,
that
we
your
want to hear
concern?
what they are
Or
bringing.
do you think we should not have a board member on there at all?
I think we shouldn't have a board member there.
All right, so Megan, what
That's
would
just
you,
my opinion.
What would you say? Would you want to just take board members off? Have representation there?
I'm undecisive on this one.
All right.
I feel like there's benefits either direction.
Yeah, Jim, what would you say? Do you want board representation?
I suppose if they were on there, I think as long as they could just keep their opinions.
Yeah,
And I
that-
don't have a problem with them being there and listening and seeing what's going on. The
Okay.
only one thing that would do though is that would influence your decision when we come together and talk about it. But then hopefully, what they're gonna bring to the board for us to vote on is something that you guys agree on. But I mean,
Yeah.
if you listen to the board and you're there listening to what they have to say and you disagree what they want, then when you come to vote on, you're gonna be swayed by your opinion that what they did was not right.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, no, I
ahead.
agree exactly what Jim says. I mean, and with what Heather said. I mean, you know, my goal would be to participate and to gain information because I'm really interested in what the public has to say. I'm really interested in what the parents have to say. But I do think having, you know, read the book and taken extensive notes and thought a lot about it, I would really like to hear what the people have to say, and it would not be my goal to have an undue influence on them, but you know, to gather information for the board, so that I can say what I heard and what my thoughts were and what the people had to say, and that's basically the way I conducted myself during the 5th grade social studies curriculum, and I would adopt a similar thing. But you know, if the board decides they don't want to.
Well, I'm not saying not to have somebody. I'm just saying that's, if you have them, if you're there, that you might be persuaded with that. I mean, and I'm like Heather, or like Megan, I'm kind of, I can see the good in it. I can see, like I say, I can see where you could be influenced one way or the other with it if you're there.
Oh, well, I
And
think.
more
I
so,
think
it's not
we have
that you
to-
might be influenced. My greater concern is that you would be influencing on the conversation.
you know, I understand exactly.
Stifle the
Yeah,
conversation.
no, I want to
or-
gather information. I don't want to influence I want to hear what people have to say.
Right.
But I think
So I
the
think
point of
you could
having
be
someone
a
on,
participatory, or just be a silent observer?
We
What was
decided,
the policy?
we decided not to have any silent observing. We decided to, but
was
to
the
have it be,
wording?
but we could have this be, just
was it?
very limited.
Non-voting is.
yeah,
No,
no, I
See,
think that,
non-voting is different.
Yeah.
right. No,
we have-
I guess what I would say is, my philosophy is that if I were there, if I had something, you know, people bring up points and you like to elaborate on it or say, well, based upon my research or whatever, you know, I've got a different take on it, but not to try to influence them. I want to be there to learn and then be able to represent to the board what I've heard. And so I don't want to sway opinions, but you know, you really, you know, a non-voting, a participating but non-voting, as we had in one of the policy procedures we just discussed. That's my philosophy. And
Okay, why don't we just keep you on there, and we've got 2 undecided, and then we'll just pick this up at our next meeting, and then we can just finalize it, because.
yeah, I just thought I'd bring it up
This isn't
now so we
going
could
out
talk about it. That's what
until
we're here for.
So is that okay with everybody? We pick this back up? Because we have 2 undecided.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
So,
Thank you.
thank you. Are there any other comments before we move forward to the public and written comment? Written comment was received and is included in the packet. We have 4 requests for comments, starting with Ryan Frost, then Mary Ann, then Vanessa, and then Abe. Was that, you can, and you'll have 3 minutes, and Renee keeps the time, so she'll just kind of signal to you when your time is up. So just kind of keep an eye on Renee.
And actually, I'm okay just not, I just put my name down there, just in
Oh,
case.
perfect. And
Thank you.
Thanks. I think this is exactly what we have on our.
Yeah, it is.
Is it okay if I stand up here?
oh, yeah.
Teacher, I like to stand when I talk, sorry. Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak before you today. My name is Ryan Frost. I've been teaching for 17 years, with the last 11 being here at School District 25. I'm here today to advocate for a change in the high school boundaries. Over the past several years, Century High School's enrollment has decreased by 175 students. This represents 14% of our student population. That information's on that first piece of paper that I provided with you, and all the information here is from previous school board minutes as well. Additionally, our free and reduced lunch rates has decreased by 5.39%. That information's also there in the middle of that first piece of paper. This enrollment decline has affected our extracurricular programs as well. Participation has dropped to the point where we cannot field teams. For instance, this year we didn't have enough girls to form our JV freshman girls soccer team, and for the past 2 years we haven't been able to fill the JV football team. If you look on that third piece of paper, it kind of goes through participation numbers through the last several years. Some instances I wasn't able to get information. For some teams, for example, like a cut sport, like a boys basketball, girls basketball, volleyball, we just looked at number of freshmen that tried out in the sport. So looking at that, just seeing the trend is going downward in majority of the sports. If you look at some, there is a trend of going up in some of those. I would say that is a job of some of the head coaches here tonight. We do a real good job of convincing kids to show up. For example, freshman football this year, I believe we had 17 kids that have never played football before. And that was almost half the football team, which is very hard to convince a kid to put a helmet on if he's never put a helmet on before. Currently, elementary and middle school boundaries are being reconfigured like we talked about earlier in this meeting, yet the high school boundaries were not addressed. I understand this decision was influenced by the concerns about timing of academic planning and the master schedule. However, as a father of an 8th grade girl who loves soccer, she's currently at Franklin, I find this answer inadequate. In education, we face difficult challenges to support our student needs. This is no different. I personally know Jamie over at Century. We talked about registrars having a lot more work. I would imagine Century would probably be the one that has the most work, where we're maybe trying to build more population of students there. I'm sure Jamie would be willing to do that, just like Heather said she'd be willing to help. I'd be willing to help. I'm sure we could find a lot of people that would help. 7 years ago, a boundary committee recommended new boundaries to the school board. The previous board chose not to adopt these boundaries. That is that last page on there, which shows the recommended boundary that they had the committee. So we talked about forming a committee and doing this. This happened 7 years ago, and they said, here's the boundary we recommend. It was not recommended, and if you notice, the numbers there is significantly different from the numbers on that first page. Today, I think we have an opportunity to correct that decision. I urge you to review the data I have provided and help support incoming Century students, like my daughter, who is hopeful to have teammates for her soccer team next year. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mary Ann?
I'm a teacher too, but I'm an old teacher, so I'm gonna sit. I wanted to speak tonight about the cell phone proposed policy. On October 31st, Governor Little signed Executive Order 2024-11 called the Phone Free Learning Act. So with that, I sent a survey out to all schools, to all staff of all schools. In that survey language, I included that sentence I just read. This act encourages school districts to adopt a comprehensive district-wide policy restricting cell phones in schools. I then included the current district policy on cell phones. We had 494 responses. The choices were maintain the current policy with each admin and or teacher authorizing the use of personal electronic devices, update the current policy to allow student use of personal electronic devices in between classes and at lunch or recess, and update the current policy to completely ban the use of personal electronic devices at school during school hours. The survey results were 44.1%, or 218, asked for a complete ban.
Tell me the percentage of that again, I'm sorry.
44.1%, or 218 staff members. 172 staff members, or 34.8%, asked to maintain the policy, and 104 staff members, or 21.1%, voted to update and allow the use of cell phones at lunch and recess or in between classes. And I will send you that. I know last time what I sent didn't come through very well, so I'll make sure I send you the clean copy of that. Along with that, I just wanted to make a comment about the committee, the cell phone policy committee timeline, and also the elementary boundary committee and committees in general. Ms. Furness, I appreciate you recognizing that middle school, as though it is part of secondary, it is very different than high school. So I appreciate the fact that you asked for an additional teacher to be placed on that committee, on the cell phone committee. My question is, and I just sat here and looked through policy, is why is it that teachers are always the least number of the committee members? On every committee, and I don't have any other committee in front of me, but on the cell phone committee, we'll have 4 parents, 4 admins, and now we'll have 3 teachers. On the elementary committee, we have 7 parents and 2 teachers, 3 admin, and 1 director. Why is it, if there is a policy somewhere that says how y'all decide who is on a committee, I would really like to see that, because in every policy that is enacted, in just about every policy that is enacted, it falls to the teachers to enforce that policy. And we may say, well, that's an administrator's job to enforce it, but it comes down to the staff. I won't even say teachers. It's the staff. It's the teachers, it's the paras, it's the people that have the direct contact with students. So I would really like to see some more opportunities, or opportunities for more staff to be involved in these committees. And in our negotiated agreement, we have listed the specific committees that the PEA has membership on. And I would like to ask that any committee that is created, we automatically have PEA membership on. I've asked and I've gotten that each time, but it should just be kind of, I believe it should be a given that when we form a new committee, a short-term or an ad hoc committee, that the PA has some membership on that. So if you have any questions.
Unfortunately, we can't,
You can't what?
we can't respond because it wasn't on the agenda as a discussion, but we will definitely follow
I'll
up.
follow up with you,
Yeah,
Mary Ann, on
definitely.
number 2.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary Ann.
Well, my number 2. It's not your number 2.
Okay, so
My follow-ups.
the last request is, I think Vanessa. I can't find my paper. There we go.
I appreciate you taking this opportunity to hear some comments. I come to you as a parent of students at Century High School. I have lived in Pocatello for 25 years, but did not grow up here and kind of came here as kind of an outsider to the high school situation. My oldest son went to Century the year before the boundaries were closed and were changed. And he had the opportunity to go with a large group of his friends. Kids are kind of social creatures. They kind of go where their friends go. Had some, was able to be part of a large football team and had a different experience. Since that time, I have sent 3 daughters to Century High School, and I can tell you their experience has been markedly different in that respect. We hear comments, why don't any of my friends from middle school go to the same high school as me? Where is everybody? And it was as if when the boundaries made up, I appreciate what it was done, but it was essentially told, your high school experience isn't quite as important as potentially these other kids whose high school experience the board was looking out for. And I feel Pocatello can support 3 high schools. I believe there can be boundaries, but I feel like they should be fair. I found it was quite telling. I was able to be on the middle school boundary committee, and as we looked at numbers, there's not a single middle school where the majority of the kids go to Century High School out of the 4 middle schools. Also, while the other 2 high schools are at or even slightly above capacity, Century High School has room for 121 kids. And that definitely affects experience, it affects culture at that high school. Like I said, I've watched it firsthand, front row seat for 6 years, just, similar to Ryan Frost saying. And I know this board is really capable of hard decisions because I watched you guys work through the mascot renaming of Pocatello High School that met a lot of pushback and some resistance, and I feel ultimately it was a good decision, and it has been good for the students of our district. So I appreciate the voice of concern I felt at this meeting. I feel like this is something that can be addressed and can be implemented as soon as possible. I have a son who's going to be a freshman next year, and I would like to be able to say that, be able for him to have a good experience. And so, thank you for your time, and I know we can do it, so.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I guess we're going to add the committee to the agenda, right? That committee. But also, just to clarify, it wasn't this board that did the mascot. I just wanted to clarify that. There's only one person that's still on the board. But we have had a lot of hard things. I will definitely agree with you. That just didn't happen to be one of them. Is there anything else from anyone? In that case, that concludes this meeting.